and now the YouTube video is on. And I wish I could do this also with the Zoom, but we are going to have to do the Zoom separate because the Zoom is going to be for the Patreon channel. So I'm going to try to link the Zoom to the Instagram and not the Zoom, I'm going to have to try to link. As a matter of fact, I should actually run a test run on that. But anyways, as promised, we are going to be talking a little bit about gaslighting part 2. I'm not sure if I did this last week with Instagram. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. But I'm back in full effect with the fro because I tried to do a hairstyle and it didn't work out. It was just, my hair is being very disobedient. And so is my makeup. So you have me in all my full, beautiful, natural glory, and I hope that is okay. So, I watched the video that I posted up on Patreon. If you guys are not Patreon subscribers, please do so. Please subscribe to my Patreon if you're interested in some of the content or all of the content that I provide for you. Yeah, that would be something that you would probably enjoy. However, today we're going to be talking about gaslighting part 2. And basically, some of my friends were like, well, I realized actually that I hadn't really posted, I had not posted on the movie itself. Like, I put the, excuse me, I put the picture up. I have paused the entire video. So we're not going to recap any of that, what I just said. We are just going to say, for YouTube's sake, go check out the movie. If you feel like these signs are maybe 50% or even 40% in your relationship with maybe a spouse, parent, or friend, or boss, their chances are that you may be gaslighted. So how do you deal with these type of people? Okay, so back to the story, right? Remember I was telling you that I met this guy, we had this long conversation, and the conversation was great, and then it turned into some other shit because I was doing some things that I wasn't sure I was made to feel that I wasn't supposed to do those things, but there was no reference point as to me doing those things or not. And that just created a lot of confusion. And instead of walking away from the situation and saying, you know what, maybe this is just not for me, right? In the movie, of course, the man and the woman are married, so that's a little bit of a different situation. I don't get that, actually. Why women, well, I do actually, I do get that. Why women stay in situations that they're not legally committed to. Um, Sorry, guys, we have woodpeckers. Are there woodpeckers in Germany? Apparently they are. Anyways, so I digress. I stayed in this situation because I had a point to prove, right? I talked about the point, the proving of the point, which was that I wanted to prove that I could be in a relationship. And this relationship was not the best situation for me, but I stayed because it afforded me access to opportunities that I may have not had access to. Maybe we will never know. And so what happened was that, so we broke up, we got back together. When we got back together, it was on his terms. And remember I mentioned that we hadn't addressed some of the issues that we were supposed to address. Well, I was supposed to address these issues because they were my concerns. And, you know, if you're in a relationship of convenience, you don't want to stir up that convenience. And so this was very convenient for him. So of course he's not going to address the argument that we had that led to the breakup. So that was my responsibility. And the topic is today, how do you take responsibility for the abuse that you're allowing into your life? And I understand that a lot of the times, I've heard this a lot of the times, when someone's being abused, they feel like it's not their fault. This is also for my YouTube videos. So I know this is going to rub some people the wrong way. But hey, look, I've been abused. I've been in relationships that were abusive. And the defining moment of when that relationship ended was when I finally accepted that this is something that I can no longer accept. And so I'm not victimizing the victim here. I'm not saying you're wrong. Well, I am saying you're wrong. I am saying I was wrong. Let me say that. Maybe that's better to say. I was wrong to be in a situation that was beneath me. But it became beneath me when I suddenly decided that I wanted something more. I made notes for this, guys, but I feel like the notes are just not doing the topic justice. So we got back together, and in the in the time that we got back together, I had three choices, which every person, woman or man, has in any situation that has any foundation of conflict. And those are: continue like nothing happened, right? We're just going to pretend that we didn't have that argument and we were just on a vacation and whatever, and we just continue from where we left off. Or we can end the relationship completely and never come back to it, or put the relationship on hold, right? So put on hold, pretend like nothing happened, or put on hold, pretend like nothing happened, or end it forever. And each one of those choices has consequences, right? You put the relationship on hold, you have time to reflect and figure out where what your next move is going to be. You can end it because you feel like it's not going to work out. And when someone tells you who they are the first time, believe them the first time, so you don't have to have the gift of having to learn the same mistake over and over again. Or you can move on, right? You can move on with the idea in good faith that some things just happen and some things have changed. But I would recommend that if you do that you try to get some amount of clarity on what that argument was. And I didn't do that, and I paid the price because it came up again. And so where am I going with this? I'm going here. You have the power. I like that word, power. Yeah, you have the power to allow a person or to guide a person in the direction as to which you want to be treated. Oh, but I love him and he's my everything and this and that. Well, your actions communicate to everyone around you what you will and will not accept in your life. But I can't leave him, otherwise, I'm going to be alone. And okay, so what is being alone mean? He's my everything, and if I don't have him, then I'm nothing and I'm no one. Then I will tell you what was being told to me. You need therapy. Make a note of that. You need therapy because 50% of us are never going to find that special someone. If you spend all of the time that you have on this earth trying to convince someone that you're worth the love and maybe you really don't believe that you're worth more than this abuse, then stay. But then know that it's a choice, and I felt like all of the saints that took the time out to talk to me about what I was doing was wrong neglected to mention that there was something in me that I needed to change in order to become somebody that was worthy of a relationship that I say I wanted. But I would first have to become that person before I found the person that I wanted to find. Am I moving too fast? Well, if I am, you can just, look this up on YouTube because it's going to be repeatable or rewindable. But yeah, you need therapy. And honestly, in non-white communities, let me say non-white communities because it's not just Black communities, it's also Hispanic and Middle Eastern, we frown upon therapy. We want to give everything to Jesus or Allah and then just say like, okay, Allah will take care of it or Jesus will take care of it and I'll give it to God and I'll be fine. I actually just did a seminar on this yesterday, a presentation, and I hope I get the notes so that I can upload them because I was met with a lot of resistance. This is a real major issue. And on a micro level, this is the core issue as to why women get into situations of gaslighting, because we allow it, we say it's okay, and men know that it's okay, and we continue in our dysfunction. We raise children in this dysfunction, and these children end up not wanting to be in the dysfunction of their own. They're choosing to raise their children by themselves because they rather be alone than be unhappy. Or they go on the other end of the spectrum where you have women who have unrealistic expectations of men. Everybody wants the high profile, high value, high this rich man. And I'm sorry, but for the most of us, especially in the Black communities, 1 out of 4 of us will even end up having the chance to call someone a husband, and the rest of us will just die alone because of either unrealistic expectations or being too damaged because we've been gaslighted our whole lives. And so this is why I'm having this discussion with you, so you could get some therapy, unpack your shit, and become realistic about what it is you can and cannot do in your relationships, i.e., take control of your life and stop attracting these ain't shit men, and start to being able to recognize that this is your fault. Sorry, this is your fault. This was my fault because the first time and don't get me wrong, I do understand that there is such a thing as love, and that we all fall in love and we all want to be loved. But that's why therapy is important, because I didn't even know what love was supposed to look like. I thought it was this thing where a guy took you out and bought you gifts and bought you presents, but something was off. After all of the gifts and presents and taking out was done, um, I was, I allowed myself to be played like a puppet, and that I talk about this on Patreon, where I was being observed very keenly. Hello. I was being observed very keenly as to what makes me tick. So that's the first sign. Get the lights up, get the lights up. I was being observed. He would ask me all these questions. Yeah? Questions. What do you like? What do you do? What do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? And so if there was any argument to be had, he would know exactly what to say to rub me the wrong way or the right way. Right? So, Nihanda, people actually take this time out to really observe you the way they observe you, and make this like a habit. Yeah, this is not just a style of operating. This is a lifestyle, yo. So if you're thinking that you're going to change a gaslighter into something or someone else, understand that this is a also damaged human being. I don't like that word damage. This is a different type of psychosis, if you may. A different type of psychosis that just means that this is how this person operates. The chances of this person changing their way of interacting with you are slim, because hurt people hurt people. So this person has probably been exposed to this kind of behavior in their own upbringing. And I'm not going to get into any of what I discovered in his upbringing, only to say that he was also a very damaged person, and this was the norm for him. And to learn something new, to operate in a different, more wholesome way, requires therapy, which we talked about in our relationship. Have you had therapy? When we finally got to a place where we could have those real conversations, remember that those are the kind of conversations that you want to have in the beginning with your partner, perhaps. I don't know, like, what's your favorite movie? Is it Notebook, or is it Clockwork Orange? And if the answer is Clockwork Orange, that might be maybe not necessarily a red flag, but an orange one, I don't know. Could be possible. Yeah, the answer to that question was Clockwork Orange. So that should have triggered me to run in the opposite direction. But again, I felt like I had a point to prove, right? And so when this came up that, he was in therapy and therapy could only take him so far because this was a family lifestyle issue that everyone needed to have been in therapy, i.e., especially the parents, um, there was only so much he could do. And his issue, and guys, like I said, it's not just one guy, it was many other people like that in my life who really need to be in therapy. And I advocate for that because it has changed me um completely. I am at least able to get to a place of self-awareness that I can recognize why and what it is I do that is hurting me and hurts other people around me that I say I love. And it's like alcoholics who can admit, at least you can have to try to just admit, for fuck's sake, that you are some level of mentally ill, which we all are, because not all of us have this wholesome white picket fence lifestyle that we grew up in. And I digress. Let's go back to the gaslighting. But when you get to that place where you can have that conversation, which in the movie they didn't, because this is 1944 and women don't do that. She got some help. She recognized some way, somehow, that there was something off about her husband, and that help came from outside. So one of the things that you can do if you can't immediately get to therapy is to get help and perspective from outside. For me, that took a long time because, again, I went back for round 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And the more I went back, this is where it's going to go. Spoiler alert. The more I went back, the more I suffered. All right. So, um, so what changed, Nahanda? What changed? Okay, so we're not going to jump ahead and get into what changed. We're just going to deal with some of the initial signs. So we didn't address the issue, and then when the second breakup took place, I realized that this was also learned behavior on my part because I love my mom dearly, but we are also my mom and I have done some group therapy um, in a couple of months ago, almost half a year ago, to address some of the ways that I learned that gaslighting was the way people could treat me. And so when she came into the picture, because she was away and I was having trouble getting my relationship not under control, but asking for what it is I want, because essentially that's one of the core issues, or one of the core issues why I was being emotionally and verbally abused in this particular relationship. Um, was because he figured out that he could get away with it when I took it back. And because I didn't address the issue, that confirmed and solidified that he could get away with it. And we did talk about that. It was like, well, I thought it was okay. And so I I had been I had so I talk about in Patreon that I ended up giving my number to someone that was a friend of his that I didn't know was a friend of his, and we were supposed to meet, but then the friend ended up dating someone else, and my ex, brought me to a party and introduced me as his girlfriend to this guy that I had given my number to. And while it could have been embarrassing, like I don't want to be like, hey, this is my boyfriend, and then my friend goes, oh yeah, we dated, or yeah, she liked me, he liked me. Um, how the fuck was I supposed to know that that's your friend? Like, we just started dating, we were unpacking a lot of stuff, and so he pulls me one side and he's like, yo, my friend says that you gave him your number. And you got to understand, if you listen to the Patreon story, there was a lot to unpack in the time of which we broke up. And so I really didn't think he was coming back. So I just moved on with my life. And this train of conversation was actually the foundation laying on his part. So from a psychological point of view, this train of foundation was actually the foundation to say, like, this is how we're going to do things. whatever it is I say goes. Basically, if I say um, that we're broken up, we're broken up. You won't know unless I say, and I may or may not say. But when I do say, then this is how it's going to be. So it creates a lot of confusion and uncertainty. So that anecdotal story is just to check that off your list, that if you feel like you're constantly in situations where you don't know what the fuck is going on because you haven't been told, you can't make an independent decision as an adult to move or behave in a certain way. You don't know the status of your relationship. You may or may not be cool with this person because you may or may not have said something that might have pissed them off, and the breakup is coming today, tomorrow, in a month, but you're not certain. If that is your roller coaster, then that is definitely not an orange flag or, a purple flag. That is a red big free flag, yo. Like, run, run, run. So I'm standing there at the party, and he whispers something in my ear to the effect of, "Oh, well, I didn't know that you and um, let's just call him John were talking." And I'm like, I just gave him my number. I thought honesty would have been the best policy, but it wasn't, and so that was definitely a bad move. If I lied, his friend later confirmed, yeah, she gave me her number. I didn't know this was your girl, whatever. And so that embarrassed him. Now, um, I'm going to get into the difference between um, couples goals and um, what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm looking for something that talks about an agreement of how couples an agreement of how couples, me and my husband have done this actually. How do you interact with each other when there's conflict in a public space? So that's going to be my next topic, because if you don't have, I mean, yeah, you want to say common sense. You don't do X or Y or Z. You don't cuss your partner out in public. Well, is that a commonsensical thing? Is that something to know? Maybe some people don't know that, but that has to do with self-awareness, and self-awareness comes from therapy. Um, the difference between that and whispering something in a person's ear that makes them feel uncomfortable the whole time you're there is also a foundational issue that is being laid down. So he says something to me like, "I can't believe that you did that," and he didn't tell me what that was. So I'm standing there the whole time like, "Oh shit, an argument's coming," but I don't know when or where or what it is. And so I'm on edge, and I'm not able to interact freely with the people around me. Therefore, the people around me, and there were several instances like this in the future of our relationship, I'm not able to interact with the people around me to the point where everyone thinks that there's something wrong with me, and no one knows that it's because I was just told some bad news from the person next to me, and they think that I'm just a bitch, basically. And so anyways, when that happened, we um, we get home. He drops me off, and then he makes a arrangement for a lunch the next day, and we talk about this issue, and this issue leads to then the third breakup. I'm just sighing at my past self, y'all. Like, wow, I've really come a long way though. Ah, Jesus, Jesus. So, the difference between interacting in public and in private, and how do you differentiate and agree upon how our interactions are with other people, and how you interact when you have conflict? Like, how do you deal with conflict? We're going to have to talk about X, Y, Z, but it's fine. If you're being made to feel like you can think whatever you want to feel, you can think whatever you want to think, I'm not going to give you any prelude or any indication or any clues as to what it is that's wrong now. I'm just going to leave you hanging like a cliffhanger the whole time, which is similar to what I said before, that you are uncertain. Um, I think the anecdote kind of makes a slight differentiation between the two. You know what I mean? Third one, I'm just going to go through this anecdotally again for those who missed it from the last time. The third one is receipts, y'all. Receipts, fucking receipts. When my mother came into the picture and I started to get advice from her, that was a good and a bad thing. And I'll talk about that in part 3. Um, because I was able to have in real time a person who was able to validify that I wasn't losing my mind. Because I would say, hey, we had an issue with this. You know, when I finally started to get the courage to say, I don't like this or that or the other, he would be like, what are you talking about? I never said that. I never did that. What? No, that's not how it worked. And I felt like, okay, at this point, I need to have some kind of bill of receipts or a way to prove that I was having an issue and it wasn't just all in my head. And so a simple thing that you could do is just be like, so what are you trying to say? Am I lying? You can ask the person, so are you saying that I'm lying? And if they say yes, then you have a problem. That's a red flag. This might seem a little obvious, but I think that the rhetorical and the blunt out lying and saying I never said that is made to just stop you. So most people don't get past the I never said that, you know. Luckily with technology, when you have screenshots and you have WhatsApp and emails, and if they ever put anything in writing, you can just be like, yeah, I got my notes right here. This is how this went. And so, yeah, that happened like that. Brace yourself for all of you. I hope you are sitting down if you're watching this on YouTube. They may even go as far as to say that what those receipts are not real. Please run. God, run. Run! Run like you're Magic Johnson. Run for your life. Because that is a huge, huge red flag. If somebody's going to deny proof, living, breathing proof that this is what's happening, they're committed to this persona of abuse. They're committed to this at the level where they have no remorse or sympathy, and this is the way the relationship is set up and structured to make you feel crazy, and there's no out. If you're that attached to a person again, and you feel like there is no making this person act differently, I would start the grieving process now, even if you're not able to emotionally, even if you're not able to physically leave, try to start to distance yourself emotionally from that person and do not invest any more emotional energy into the relationship, however way you can. And, emotional distancing. How did I do that? Get clear. All right, get clear, because this again comes from a lack of self-awareness. Like, I wasn't really that self-aware when I had this relationship. Like I said, I had just had a child. I was 22, 21, and yeah, still pretty young, very, very young, and very inexperienced in this level of manipulation and abuse and even relationship, right? And so I think the only saving grace was the fact that I was a mother, because the level of commitment that it requires to have a kind of relationship with a single mother is different from someone who's childless. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. I digress. So emotional distancing is extremely important for your ability to develop some kind of strength and courage to leave. Even if you're not able to physically leave, you can leave emotionally, which is a big part of the breakup process, right? My breakup process was very dramatic. I left the country. Like, I had left the whole country. And again, this is not to say that he was a completely disgusting human being. There were a lot of things that I did that I will talk about in part 3 that provoked or made the situation much worse than it needed to be. And so when I left and I came back, he was all apologetic because he thought I was gone for good. So that's it for live. We're going to switch off to YouTube. End the video. And so when I left the country, y'all, I was just like, wow. I was just like, I um wow, I opened my eyes a lot. Like, I don't like that one. Yeah, so when I left the country and I came back, when I left, he thought I was gone for good. But when I came back, he was like, man, I missed you. I'm changed. Um, um, I really want to make things work with you. And he had apparently changed the whole belief. He had um, done a lot of work on himself, and he what to do with and look for in emotional abuse. Um, and so I really thought we were on the path to recovery. I got into some shit at work. This is the part that wasn't really his fault. I got into some shit at work where I was supposed to travel to for work, and I had asked him to help me to put the bill for the ticket. At that time, he was going through some issues at his work, but he fronted me the money with in good confidence and understanding that it was going to be paid back, and I never paid him back, or I indicated such that I may not be able to pay him back in the time that I wanted, that I had promised, because I was being ill-advised by my mother. Remember, I talked about some of the things that I had needed to address with the advice that I was getting from the single women around me whose advice wasn't worth a grain of salt that it was given with. And I love my mother. I think she's a wonderful person, but relationship advice, I think that I would have gotten it elsewhere at this point, because that created a bitter fork. It created a real sense of bitterness within him that he felt then justified in treating me the way that he did. And he used to always say to me, maybe you guys, or maybe if he listens to this, he might know who I'm talking about, because he wasn't the only man that I allowed to gaslight me. Um, but he would say something like, only when I treat you badly, then I get treated good from you. And I used to think that that was like a cop out and like a melodramatic way of not taking responsibility for the fact that he was abusing me. Um, it was probably more true than I cared to admit, because it felt almost like it was true because it was coming from a place of observation, but also because it had to do more with a sense of unworthiness on my part that we both could recognize and see, but it was too beneficial for me to be that way for him to actually do something about it, to make our interactions more pleasant and more to make our interactions more pleasant and healthy. But then again, it is not your partner's responsibility to deal with your emotional incapabilities. And I think much later on in life, when I realized that this is something that the only thing that I have control over is how and what I want, and understanding that, again, self-awareness will help to indicate to you what it is you need, want, and can expect out of a relationship. Um, Only then can you get some of what it is you want out of your relationships. Not just romantic, but across the board. But when you lack that and you feel unworthy, you will forever be in a situation where things like this continue to happen. So when I finally considered that, hey, this is probably a possibility that I don't feel worthy and capable. And that's why I've allowed this to go on in the fashion that it has gone on. I need to change something. And I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I can no longer function in this way. And that was the second part of the emotional distancing. Was we started to have real breakups where there were no more gray areas. He was put in a position by me starting to be clear about asking him directly, like, are we together or are we not together? He would have to say, we are not together. I'd have to hear those words come out of his mouth. And then I would know, all right, fine, then it's over. But at this point, he was like a friend. I loved him very dearly. And so I wasn't just going to throw away all of that with the fact that we were no longer romantic. And so I would say to him, well, if you ever need anyone to talk to, no matter what happens, you all be a friend to me, just, everything's okay, do you and be happy and whatever. And that was the beginning of a different culture of relationship, not just for me and that person, but for me in general. Like I use that even in business. I don't have to always be getting something from the people that I interact with in order to feel satisfied in my interaction with that person. I want to create a space a space of peace and joy and happiness that is not always, you must do this for me or else. And that kind of kept the door open for the possibility that I may be more than just someone that has an expectation of romance, and that I value this person more than just what I can get out of it, but that he is someone of value in the world. He's a child of God. And I think that was what led to us coming together again. But the past experience of me not paying him back really was a sore spot for him, because as a businessman, this was not something that you would do. And no, that's not something that you do. You don't not pay your debts to someone that you value and respect. And I feel like, no, I don't feel, I know, because he said to me, I feel completely dishonored and disrespected by you. And there were many instances like that in the past where I did things like that eroded into our interactions being genuine with each other, because I continued to act in that fashion that was totally disrespectful and rude. And no one checked me. And I'm not saying this as a blame. I'm saying this as a caution to the advice that you are getting as women from other women about your relationships. Women give women bad advice. Women keep women single. The best advice that I got when I was getting ready to marry my husband was this: you got to keep that man at peace of mind. Do not stress him. Learn to let shit go. And learn to carry yourself in a feminine, calm, gracious, graceful way that says, before you are even able to speak, that this kind of behavior is acceptable and this kind of behavior is not acceptable. You don't need a lot of words. You don't need to have an hour-long conversation like I did in the past with my ex, trying to explain and justify worthiness, or trying to justify poor behavior. Say what you gotta say if there's a question that needs to be answered, and let it be short and sweet. If he's not ready, he's not ready. Let him go. Let him go. Bye-bye. Avitasen. Cheers. Sayonara. Let him go. Do not. So many of us push and force and make these men something that they just ain't. God damn. Whew, sweet baby Jesus. when we are not men are not the only ones that objectify women. I mean, men are not the only ones that objectify. Women objectify too. We want the man with the big fat bank account that can take us on these expensive vacations and this and that and the other. And men feel that. Men feel really pressured and forced and used and abused by that kind of behavior. And again, I'm not saying that this guy was a saint or that you know, he was somebody that I drew away. I'm saying that relationships are way more complicated than we give them credit for. And gaslighting is one element that needs to be addressed in a context of um, um, all right. And so gaslighting is just a small smidgen part of some of the relationship issues that we as women have to learn how to um, understand that it is okay. So we as women have to learn how to identify it and how to know what it is and what it isn't. Our participation in it is based on our level of self-awareness and power that we come into through our femininity and through our ability to understand what a woman actually is worth and what she is not supposed to be putting up with, and being able to communicate that in a fashion that inspires everyone around us to really level up their interactions with us. All right, guys, I hope go ahead. I hope this guys has been um, beneficial, and um, this is for free, so I hope it has been beneficial. If you guys want the extended version of the story, please check me out on Patreon, become a subscriber, and leave your comments and likes. Leave your comments and suggestions, dislikes down below. You want to see more videos like this? Please let me know, and I hope that I see you again soon. Bye.